into the screenwriting industry, and here we have with us Ben Twister. He is a film critic and screenwriter. He will be moderating the session, and Darryl John Ho, who is a producer at TV Productions, and also Lee Jin. He is a scriptwriter and director, and some of his work has been known by many of you because it's on Channel 5 like Code of Law and The Tutor. So let's give him a round of applause.
Hello everybody, welcome to this session which is called How to Break into the Screenwriting Industry. So I'm hoping that there's lots of people in this room who are kind of interested in writing, people who have begun to write and are thinking about writing in terms of film, TV and kind of what we might call moving image media, because of course that's now becoming a lot more fragmented and there are other kind of avenues and formats for creating content. So we're really lucky today to have two panelists who kind of talk about this from two different angles. We have our young David and our older Goliath, and they're going to be in conflict with each other. No, not really. So we have Daryl here. Daryl's 27, even though he looks 19, and he's kind of, he's you in 10 years' time. He's kind of making his way in the business, and he's got his own company which is called Easy, and he's a content producer, he's a writer, he's a cameraman, he's doing everything and kind of making stuff happen and creating new content and he can perhaps talk about online and some of the other avenues. And then we've got TJ, who is, I've been in Singapore about coming up to 11 years, dare I say it, and when I came in 2002, one of the first things, of course, I realized when I moved to Singapore was that television isn't very good here. I think we were, generally, and that was my first impression. It was cliche, it was kind of woodenly active, formulaic, very conventional, conservative stuff. And then I managed to catch something, and I kind of knew some people who were involved in it who were acting, which was called the Singapore Short Story Project. And that was not your first series, but it was kind of like an early big project that you did after Alterations. And it was a series of adaptations in kind of episodic format of short stories written by local writers. And it was really ambitious and really well put together and had a lot of integrity and kind of made me realize actually yes, it is possible to make really good quality television in Singapore, and I think that that's a kind of path that you've sort of kept going with, and you've made some really groundbreaking shows, particularly for television, but you've also been working in film. So and I'll just say something about myself. I started off as a film critic. I sort of got into script writing through editing other people's scripts, and now I'm also a writer and I also teach screenwriting at NTU. But I want to throw it to these guys first, just questions, because let's just go straight to the topic. How did you break into screenwriting or content making from that perspective and to get to where you are today? Let's start with Darryl.
Okay, maybe the title is a bit of a misnomer because for me personally, I feel that we don't really have a screenwriting industry per se. We don't really have a screenwriting industry per se. But that being said, I think there's tremendous potential for all of you here to develop something, to create this industry, to keep churning out stories and scripts to really bring Singapore and its stories out there to the rest of the world. And yeah, so from a content producer's perspective, recently when now the media is so liberalized and we can really get almost anything online, all different kinds of stories that mainstream media may not cover because the executives feel that it's not a viable option, does not have a good return on investment. But things like that really brings it's really a new frontier now, and you guys are really in a good position to take advantage of that. Yeah, that is.
How did you get into it?
How did I get into it? Well, Let me think. Let me try to concise it, try to make it short, because I have this friend who is a DJ, who's a very famous DJ. I once interviewed him, and he gave me a 45-minute history about how he got into the DJ industry, which included him being an air steward and all that. To keep things short, yeah, but it's really funny. To keep things short, the funniest part is that everyone who came in after him, so they're like, oh, so Brandon told you about this 45-minute history, right? They were like, yawn. So, yeah. But anyway, yes. How did I start? How did I start? Well, I started after graduation. I just went straight into the industry. I got an offer to do this, and started out with production. And after doing production for a while, I feel that in order to really boost my own so-called profile, or rather to satisfy sense of achievement or ambition that I have. I wanted to create content that I can say that is my own, and that I can say is that I know that it can affect people. And so with that in mind, I just got a few friends together. We started discussing, meeting people, just keep going, just keep doing. There's really no alternative to hard work, and not just hard work writing, but hard work meeting people, getting yourself known, not saying getting yourself known, but getting to know others so that you can bounce ideas off each other, you can form a community. And that's really important in writing and creating content, because there's only so much you can experience alone, and know that everyone has a unique story to tell. But what I feel in writing that's really important is that you are able to bring your story up and throw it out to your friends, and let them tear the script up in front of you. And that way you can learn how the audience, or at least how the audience will react to your story, and think about, okay, so the core of my story is this. I want to tell, for example, I want to tell a story of how my grandma used to cook mee sua for all of us during Chinese New Year. So, but that is the core of my story. But because sometimes when we are creating a lot of stuff, we just feel like, okay, we should add this in. We can add that in. Oh, this will make it quite funny. It's quite interesting to add a side story from my uncle. But to you it may seem very relevant, but to another person it will be like, okay, this is not relevant. You should cancel it out. So be brave to really put yourself out there and really be, in a way, criticized, decimated by your peers. Yeah.
How did I get started? I wrote an application letter. I actually wrote 20 of them. I went to university at a time when first there wasn't an industry to speak of, much less a screenwriting industry. There just wasn't a production industry. There was just then SBC, and you'll know how old I am now if you do the math. There was just SBC, and there were a few odd production companies around Singapore kind of doing television commercial work. So I studied overseas, and before I came back, and this is in the days when there wasn't the internet either, so you actually had to write stuff. So about a month before I came back to Singapore, I wrote to the Economic Development Board of Singapore. Because it's a very Singaporean thing, right? You don't know what to do, ask the government. So that's what I did. I said, I'm looking for a job in the media industry. Do you happen to know any companies who are doing media or film or TV production? And kind of not expecting a reply. And about 3 weeks later, this package came in the mail. It was like a 20-page printout, and each page had a production company or some kind of company involved in the media. And that was a surprise to me, because this was in the early 90s. I didn't know that there were that many people doing film and television work in Singapore. So being kiasu, I just sent off a letter to each and every one of the companies. And by the time I came back, then SBC called me in for an interview. They were starting their first English drama series then, something called Masters of the Sea. Your parents will probably remember it. Yeah. So I went for the interview, and I got rejected. So I ended up...
Just to be a writer on that show? Or?
To be a writer, to be a director. I ended up working for the guy who rejected me about 10 years later, and I said, by the way, do you know, that was my application. And he's like, oh God, well, it's probably a good thing that we rejected. It was a blessing in disguise. But anyway, I actually didn't start writing for television or even film for that matter, even though actually that was what I studied. I started actually writing for commercials and corporate. So it would be, we did videos for practically, things like campaigns that they would have. I did videos for, USB for Singapore Airlines, and they needed to do a video on, how to teach, their flight attendants not to play politics. We would do stuff like that.
So you would write.
We would write scenarios, and we would do these kind of videos. And after about 4 years, some friends of mine within the same department said, we're thinking about setting up our own company. So would you like to join us? Because one of them was kind of good at marketing, one of them was good at admin, that kind of stuff, and they needed somebody who was good at the creative, somebody who could kind of pitch ideas, come up with ideas, and develop them. And so I was that guy, and we left together. We formed this company, and the first project, the first sort of television project out of that was Alter Asians, for Television 12. I mean, we were also lucky in the sense that when we left. At the time that we left, we were actually prepared to do more corporate work. But around that time, TV12, as it was then known, it's Octo now, they were sort of commissioning, they were starting to look outside of SBC or outside of PCS to do commissioning, to do their commissioning. So they were actually interested in listening to ideas from, non-MediaCorp or non-SBC people, and we had this sort of idea about, we were looking around. I was kind of reading a lot of Singapore literature at the time, and I was thinking, I happened to work with one of the authors, this guy called Simon Day. Simon is a former NMP, and now he's the chairman of the Asia Environmental Council or something like that. And I was working with him on documentary, and he said, I just did a collection of short stories, and there are a lot of people around Singapore, there are a lot of short stories that are written by local authors. How come nobody ever does an adaptation of any of these? So I said, I've read some of them. I liked some of them, and I'll just put it together as a proposal, and we'll see what we can do. And to my surprise, they said yes. That became Alter Asians, and that sort of kickstarted my career in writing for television. Yeah.
So just to kind of follow up, just in terms of where you are now, you now have your own production company. You're kind of an independent entity, but you have a regular client, which is MediaCorp, and you produce content for them. Is that?
Right now, yes, I have my own company, which is essentially me. But it's a registered company, and we don't just produce for MediaCorp. I just finished something for Toggle, which interestingly enough, Toggle is what they call a new platform. It's called OTT, over the top. It's not really web. It's web, but apparently it's multi-platform. Yeah, you can watch it online. You can watch it on your iPad. You can watch it on your mobile devices. But interestingly enough, the telemovie I did for them, they chose to actually release it in cinemas for a week. It's called Love and Other Bad Habits. It's just it was Zoe Tay and George Young. They released it in cinemas for about a week, just to kind of, I think, just sort of as a publicity exercise, for the channel itself. So there's that aspect. I also work for corporate clients as well, and I'm sort of in development of a couple couple of feature films, with a few different investment companies.
Well, let's get to this question that Daryl mentioned earlier, and they're trying to talk about the multi-platforms and other kind of places where content is shown is maybe a good point to talk about the idea of, is there a screenwriting industry in Singapore? If you're a young person who wants to write, wants to create moving image content, has ideas for it, is it just a dream? Is it just a kind of thing that you do on the side while you do other things? Or is there really an industry that you can be in and you can get a role in and kind of, basically make a living out of? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually do make my living out of it, so I guess in a way, it is a growing, it's something that's developing. I wouldn't say it's a full-fledged industry again, but it's something that's developing because right now there's this around, not just companies, but even governments they are looking for narratives to tell stories, to engage the audiences. It's what people will call it as brand storytelling. So that's something very popular these days, and that generates quite a fair bit of income for quite a number of us in the production.
Give us an example.
For example, the easiest one that I can remember is probably HPB's one, the one with Royston Tan, where two old guys meet up and then have a chit-chat session about prostate cancer. Prostate cancer or some cancer. Yeah.
Like a public service announcement.
It is. And for commercial sites, KFC last year they released this. They released that what you call it? Yeah, the viral campaign thingy, which it's basically people are looking to, because more and more, so we are very resistant to, hey, you do this, you do that. I mean, that's why there isn't Pongo is a different organization now. So yeah, people they don't really like other people telling what to do or what to think, or that you are cool because you buy this or you eat that. But what people like is to be engaged with emotions, with stories that matter to them, because they themselves, and situations that they themselves that they are familiar, that they can share and they can have that kind of collective kind of catharsis. When they see, my grandma said, maybe I should go and have a breakfast with my grandma or something like that. Yeah, so this is something that the industry is kind of, this is the way, the trends are moving. They're kind of this storytelling that's moving, not just staying in a traditional platform like film, TV, or books, or they are moving towards more like a 360 content production where the content will engage you not just on TV but on the web, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And I think one example that I'd like to share with you is I'm not sure whether you watched this series called Psych. It's a crime drama that's on which network? USA network. Yeah, it's a US television program. What they did last year was quite interesting, is that before they launched the series, they started this little game that called #Killer, where they invited the audience to be part of the game to find who is the #Killer, and even audience also can be murdered by the #Killer. So yeah, it's something that's it's something that's really quite exciting. This field of writing, that you are able to engage viewers and audiences, through multiple platforms. So that's where I feel, the future is heading to.
Peter, do you want to talk about the notion of the industry? Because I know you're a big believer that there is a proper screenwriting industry.
I believe there is an industry, whether how it's shaped, I mean, to some extent, the kind of industry we have here is really a microcosm of what they have, in other, Hollywood, for example. It's just that it's on a much smaller scale, in the sense that I think if you look at not just screenwriting, if you look at any other aspect of the production industry, there's always a small percentage of people who are doing a large bulk of the work, or the you know the films, the big tentpole stuff, you know, the high profile.
Yeah.
There's a large percentage of people who are doing the other stuff, you know, the television dramas, the tele movies, you know. There's people who are doing the corporate, and then you know you have the sort of amateurs or professional or sort of semi-professional people who are doing it part-time. So that there is the makeup of the industry is not it's not just okay, I'm a professional screenwriter, so I only do features, or I'm a professional screenwriter, I only want to do high-profile projects. I think it's really, I mean, as far as the writers themselves are concerned, or at least the professional writers are concerned, I think we've done away with the idea of, okay, I only do this, I don't do that, or I'm a film writer, I'm a TV writer. It used to be the case. I think when I started out in the industry, if you wrote for television, you were sort of like one rung lower than, you know, the people who did films, because, you know, film was art and TV is just, you know, television programming is, yeah, it's stuff you put in between your commercials for soap, you know, or shampoo. But I think it's changed a lot now. Film writers are moving to television because they get very frustrated writing in film, because, you know, people just want the latest remake of some TV show they've done. It's even happening in Singapore. I mean, in the US, it's kind of like, well, superhero franchise, you know, remake of 90s TV show, 80s TV show, you know, let's make a game into a movie. And in Singapore, you know, the films tend to be, you know, horror, comedy, or, you know, or a combination of both, horror, comedy, or something about gambling, as long as you know, something about making money, you know, yeah, or all three, you know. So feature films, because of the commercial, because of the amount of money you have to invest, and I mean to a large extent, it's also driven by the economics of producing a feature. You know, you try asking somebody for $3 million, $2 million to make a film. You know, do you think they're going to go, okay, well, you know, let's do something that, you know, only 5 people, you know, are going to appreciate. Of course, they want to monetize their investment. So that's sort of driven the business of film, is that they have to be bigger, they have to be louder, they have to kind of get more people in, and that's driven the way films are being written. So, you know, people who want to do more character-driven work, who don't want to kind of, you know, have an explosion every 30 minutes or so, they're kind of moving to television. And besides television, there's, you know, now there's web. Even in Singapore, for example, CineMSN has their web dramas. You know, you've got Toggle, and you've got even I forget which other online.
There's Click Network, but
there's-
that's not really, that's like
yeah.
very scripted work.
Yeah, but I mean, there are different platforms. You don't have to just be a film writer or a TV writer today. You can just be a writer, and you are the kind of writer you choose to be, because, you know, it's really what you want to write. It really comes down to what you want to write. You could be happy writing corporate, and you could make a decent living out of writing corporate work, because the turnaround is very fast. You deliver, it's most corporate stuff is 8 to 10 minutes. It's shorter than a half hour, you know, and the pay is pretty good, you know, for television commercial and corporate work. It's pretty good. Or you could be the kind of writer who, you know, who makes a living from something else, and then you write when, you know, the inspiration hits you. And I think it's fine. I think the kind of process of screenwriting allows you to do that. You can't decide to be a director only when you feel inspired, because you have to be, you have to basically command like an army of professionals. But for screenwriting, there is that flexibility to allow you to be the kind of writer you want to be. It's just of course, you know, a question of how you kind of turn that into something that, you know, earns you a living, and that comes, I think, through, you know, the network that you create, and, you know, the people that you meet, and kind of how you successfully transition from one project to another.
I've got a couple of questions, and then we'll open it out for people to I've got just a couple more. You recently signed there's a Screenwriters Association in Singapore. That might be worth saying. It's something that you can join. Obviously, it's something you have to have already had, you know, professional credits to join, but it's nice to know.
I think
You can join as a kind of a non-professional member. Yeah, that's right. I just sent my check today, actually. Sort of late to the party. But they were recently, a few weeks ago, they created a charter which was about basically trying to kind of create the culture of making sure writers get paid. And this is obviously a very relevant thing if you're a young writer coming into the industry, because I've had this with students of mine. They've come to me and they've said, oh, I've been approached by a producer. He wants me to write a 20-page treatment for a film, and of course, he'll pay me when we get financing in, hypothetical years' time. And I'm like, and it's his idea, and I have no rights over the idea of whatever work I do would not belong to me. But should I do it because it's a good break? And I did say no. I think that doesn't sound like a good idea. You may as well spend that time writing your own thing, which you can actually own and control and do things with. But that notion of the value of writing, I think, especially when you're a young writer, and I think we've all been through this probably, where we've done stuff for free because we just want to get our foot in the door. We want to show people what we can do, and often it feels like the industry, when you're not a known quantity, isn't willing to give you anything at all. They want you to sort of say, well, what have you done? So I just wanted your thoughts on that notion of placing value on writing. It sometimes seems like writing isn't valued so highly by the industry.
Yeah, I think sadly that is kind of the case, because writing is something where the clients usually can't see what you're doing. It's something they will see the end production, but they'll think, oh, but you guys will just take for example, a short commercial, 30-second commercial. You guys just take one day to film, but what about the process? They don't think about the number of days that it takes to come up with the copy, to think of the script, how to plan the shots. They don't really think about that. But that said, I think there are always ways to go around it, and doing pro bono work, or what my friend likes to call lost leaders, I highly discourage it, because first of all, I believe those of you who have watched Dark Knight, right? The Joker says, if you're good at it, don't do it for free, and I really believe in that thing. I only do it stuff for free unless if it's like for a very good friend of mine. I want him to succeed, or I think the whole project is really fun. Just don't mind chipping to help. But for stuff with commercial value, like what your student said earlier, man, that is a really crazy deal. Never say okay to that. I've had offers for such stuff before, and yeah, slowly but surely as a writer as you grow, you develop your career, you have to learn polite ways of saying no. Yeah, I think that's also quite an important trait to learn. Yeah.
I think this goes back to the idea of having an industry. I think it's not just about having an industry, it's about having a network. And it's about having a group of peers or people that you can kind of have discussions with when situations like this crop up. Which is why, as far as the Screenwriters Association is concerned, and even other writers, I think that to some extent, the production industry can be a little bitchy, in the sense that, we always look at other writers, it's very easy for us to look at other people's work and go, oh, I could have written that, I could have done a better job. But you see, the thing is, actually having to go through the process of doing that is a lot different, because you never know how it goes from a script to the final product on screen. There are a million things that can do. This is under 16, right? So I can't say the effort to just kind of screw up a production. Oh, okay. So, there are a million ways that you can actually fuck up a good script, and it happens a lot in the industry. So, but the reason why I'm saying this is, there is a tendency, I think, especially among writers, because writers don't tend to be the most sociable people. Writing is something that you do kind of, in your underwear, well, not me personally, but something that you do kind of in a dark room by yourself, and you can get a little nuts sometimes. So writers don't tend to be the most sociable people in the world, but it's important, I think, if you're going to do this professionally, that you kind of have a professional network, if not of other writers, at least of producers, of people that you can kind of kind of band together. So when situations like this occur, I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't do it, and I can't say that I would, but it will depend on who's asking and what the project is. And the only way that you can know is if you have a big enough, if you have a close enough network of people that you can go, okay, so I got a call from Mr. Tan from this production house, you know, what do you think? Has he done anything that's worth, you know, has he done anything, or is he just trying to kind of pull a fast one? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. In general, you know, I would say Ben is right, and so is Daryl, that, you know, you should, for anything like, especially a feature film, and something that requires a lot of work on your part, you should never have to do it for free. You should never...
Unless it's your own idea.
The only exception would be, I mean, if there's a project that you believe in, and you're writing a spec script, you know, even professional writers in Hollywood do that. If you feel very passionately about something, you want to write a script, and then you kind of shop it around. That's kind of the reverse. But I guess we're talking about situations where television producers or film producers are looking for material, and they've kind of gotten material, but they can't or won't pay somebody to kind of shape it into something that looks like a cinematic treatment. So, you know, because they've got a network of young writers who are hungry, then they just kind of throw it to them. Yes, and in those cases you shouldn't. But the only way you can kind of recognize, you know, kind of which is why I think, and I mean, this industry is just like any other industry in the world. There are people who are really good at it and who do it with integrity, and there are people who don't. And there are people who are out there to make a quick buck. And I think the only way to kind of suss out, you know, is because it's such a small and close-knit industry. You know, everybody kind of knows what everybody else is doing, and the only way kind of for you to plug into it, I think, as a young writer, is to kind of have a network. If there are functions, for example, for the Screenwriters Association, you know, that there are different kinds of writers who are working in different genres. I mean, if you meet enough of them, you know kind of who's in town and who's doing what, who's good, who's not, who's been scammed by who, which now is a lot less often than it used to be. But again, it just goes back to the fact that, you know, despite the fact that writing is not the most social activity in the world, you know, as a writer, in order to get your ideas across to people, in order to find out, you know, whether, you know, something that you're doing is viable or not, you do kind of need to have a network of, you know, kind of like-minded people that you can kind of fall back on, you know, in cases like this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think it's not necessarily always people who are trying to scam you to get you to write for free, but sometimes people who are developing their own projects, they're not getting paid either, and they kind of want, you know, it's their project, they want you to come in, and they're like, well, I'm not getting paid, so, you know, hopefully we'll all get paid eventually if you work hard on it, and of course, you know, you can fall for that, but, you know, try not to, and maybe it's worth knowing the difference between a spec script and an assignment. And a spec script is when it's your idea, it's your thing, and you own that content, and an assignment is when someone else asks you to write based on their idea, and very often you won't really own that. If it's characters or a scenario they came up with, you're kind of working for them, so you need to get paid. Or there needs to be some definite value on what you do. Last question I'll ask before I open it to the floor, which is just a quick round one. If there was one single kind of concrete piece of advice, one kind of step, practical step, people leaving this room could do after the session that would kind of take them further towards writing, getting writing, you know, out there into the world, you know, what would that be?
Just a quickie. You have to think about it.
Don't limit yourself.
I would say just write, because writers are good at procrastinating, at finding an excuse to do anything but write.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a professional writer, you have to write, and you have to learn to write to a deadline.
Yeah. Figure out some kind of deadline for yourself. I think writers need deadlines.